This is the fifth dialogue between J. Krishnamurti and Alain Naudé in Malibu, California, 1972.
Sir, the mysterious has always preoccupied man. Not only that, but there is, in a sense, everything we don't know is mysterious. We are interested in new things, going to the moon and so on, but there is another dimension of the mysterious, which has always been associated with religion. People throughout the ages have thought that the religious man can somehow wield supernatural powers. And in a general kind of way, this domain of the mysterious is called the occult. And we find in all religious thinking, in all religious texts throughout the world, the assumption that goodness, religion, is in fact very much preoccupied with Siddhis or powers, with the supernatural in fact. Would you like to say something about that, please?
Yes, sir.
Even in the Bible we see that Christ, his goodness was challenged in the following way. They said, if you claim to be a good man, make miracles. And is there any connection between these two things at all? Is occultism really the religious concern?
As you said just now, sir, man is seeking something mysterious. Man has gone to the moon. Before, the moon was a mysterious thing. Now, it's like
everybody's backyard.
Yes, it's in everybody's backyard. Our life, as you see it around ourselves, is obvious, shallow, empty, and rather boring, and we seek something mysterious beyond this. I have noticed, for example, great revolutionaries, great social reformers. Somehow that doesn't seem to satisfy them completely. They want something much more mysterious. So they turn to religion, hoping to find the mysterious in religion. And religions generally offer the mysterious.
Yes. The religious schools of Greece were in fact called the mysteries.
Mysteries, that's right,
We
in
find
Greece.
that in all ancient cultures these two things were indistinguishable.
Yes,
Mystery
in Egypt,
and religion.
in Greece, probably in Rome, certainly in India. That has been...
Also, it is a fact that the divine is the unknown.
So, is there something mysterious? That's the question, isn't it? Is there
occult knowledge? Of course there is. That's not the question.
No.
There is occult knowledge, and perhaps we might talk about that. The question is whether that occult knowledge has anything to do with what you mean when you speak of the religious man or the religious mind or the religious life.
Or goodness.
Or goodness. Is the primary issue of life, which we might call the religious concern, in any way contingent on mystery or occultism?
Obviously not, sir.
Obviously to you, sir, but as we were saying, throughout the cultures of the world, this is not obvious.
No. See, we are showing how man, bored with life, this superficial life, he wants something more mysterious.
He wants the mysterious, yes.
He wants the mysterious. And then he begins to invent the mysterious.
Or it is really there.
Or it is there. Or it is not there.
I think we are discovering even the cynical scientific minds. I mean cynical, I mean hard to hoodwink. The scientific minds today are discovering absolutely that there is what they call ESP. There is the occult.
Yes.
So this is a fact. The question is whether that has anything to do with what you mean by religion.
What do you mean by religion? What do you mean by religious life? Can we put aside all the organized religions, what they call religious life?
Yes.
Based on a belief, based on a conclusion, or a concept, a formula, a discipline, a system, a dogma.
It's part of their cultural history. Yes.
So, for me, that's not
Of
religious
course not.
life at all.
Of course not. Sometimes it's a legal code and sometimes it's enforced morality.
I mean, that's not religious life at all. Whether it is a Christian religious life or a Hindu religious life or the Islam and so on.
I think
Jewish,
that's pretty clear, sir.
very clear. If that is clear, then what is religious life? What is a life in the daily process of living? What is a religious life? Would you say a religious life is to lead a good life? Not the good life of the advertiser.
Recognized morality.
Morality.
Because that changes from culture to culture, from time to time.
That can be brushed aside too.
Not the good which has an opposite, as you said the other day.
Oh no, good life. Not a comfortable life. Not
The life which has concern, which has affection, which has love.
love. That's it.
Which is not acting for itself and from itself.
Therefore, a religious life is a life in which the self is not.
Yes, sir. However, we do find this in every one of the great religions. To that extent, I would say they are not muck, because they say absolutely this.
Go
he who
slow,
would
sir.
be- who
It's
would-
very difficult. This is a very difficult point because to lead a religious life means
To life.
a life without the self.
Yes, sir.
Now, what happens? Most of the religions recognize this.
They stated. Yes,
Therefore,
yes.
what do they do?
What they do afterwards, we see clearly, sir, is
No, they replace the self by an idea
yes, of selflessness,
of selflessness,
with all
by
the trappings attached to it.
by a savior, by a master, and so on.
Yes, sir.
which
That's
is
understood, sir.
no, which is the transformation of the self.
Into something
Into-
which is the same.
Say,
The self catches onto its own. It establishes its own security in
its
another
own
way.
image
Yes.
in a different form.
Yes.
So
That's
that
brushed
must,
aside,
no,
sir.
that must be brushed aside.
We have, sir. Yes.
So what is a religious life? We say a religious life is one in which the self is absent.
Yes.
And that's one of the most difficult things. Now, that seems rather empty. Wait, that seems rather empty.
Many people would say, "I don't find this too attractive." Yes.
That's it. Attractive, and not enough excitement, not enough glamour or all the rest of it. Therefore, they recognize a religious life is without the self, but they want to express that feeling in siddhis, in powers, in various forms of mysterious.
In other words, although pretending to get rid of the self, what they really want is the excitement and pleasure of the unknown and the powerful.
That's right, sir. So,
They're even more greedy than the businessman,
in a different way.
because the businessman he can't do magic tricks.
So we are saying a life without the self is really the most arduous, the most extraordinary demanding life.
And that is the religious life.
That's the religious life.
And there's nothing else which is religion.
Nothing else. Now, wait a minute, sir. A religious life in this sense which we are talking about, in understanding it, in living it, there are all these factors involved in it. Powers, which are called Siddhis in Sanskrit, this power of healing.
In the religious life, sir?
Wait a minute, sir.
I thought you've just said that it had
Involved.
nothing to do with the religious
No,
life.
involved in it.
How?
I'll show you in a minute. Because as you are investigating into a religious life,
Yes.
in which the self is not,
Yes.
you find these things, Siddhis,
Where do you find them? In yourself?
in yourself.
Or are they offered to you?
Or they,
Does one
No,
find them
it-
around? Or does
no,
one
it-
discover
it-
that
that-
one has these powers?
one has these powers.
Yes.
It comes out like a
Like water from the
water,
well.
yes, comes out. And one gets trapped in these.
One pursues the byproduct.
No, but they are very attractive. They are very demand. They have their own
Vitality.
vitality, their own urgency. I see a man suffering intensely. You can put your hands on him and help him to cure. And so,
And so it becomes the trademark of the holy man.
holy man. That's all my. You follow, sir? Do you remember that lovely story of a teacher and his disciple? The disciple has been with the teacher for 15 years. And at the end of that period, the disciple comes to the master and says, "Look, Master, I have lived here for 15 years and I have learned nothing. You have taught me to be good, to behave properly, to love, to become, but that's nothing. I'm sorry, I'm going away. I must find something more." So he comes back after 5 years and says, "Master, I've found it. I've got it." And the master says, "What have you got? Do you see that river? I can walk on it." And the master says, "You have taken 5 years to learn that, when there is a little boat there where you can pay a penny to cross."
Yes.
That's what we're all doing.
Yes.
Getting caught in
The occult.
in the occult, in the so-called mysterious. But when the self is not, there is
No danger.
there is a greater, vaster mystery.
That's the real occult.
That's the real thing.
Yes. The real hidden.
One has seen that one can read thought. One has seen one can
Tell the future.
tell the future, heal people. But the danger of all that,
Is the strengthening of the self.
sir, if you fall into the trap of any of these, you do not lead a religious life.
That's beautiful. Unfortunately, at present in California, the pursuit of the occult is rampant.
Of course.
Quite
Because-
recently, there's been a great fuss about some institute which, in the most blatantly commercial way, is training people with all kinds of, in the most superficial way, by the way, very superficially, training people
To be good.
training people to develop all kinds
Oh.
of superficial occult powers, and it's taken for granted that this has something to do with the good. And so these greedy people go there, and through certain exercises, through breathing,
So
through
this is
self-hypnosis,
as old as the hills.
they
these
either
things are.
achieve or think that they achieve some sensation or some kind of occult power, and they think that this is good.
So you see, sir,
They don't even do it properly.
no, to lead a religious life, with all its responsibilities, is to lead a good life, the flowering of goodness which cannot exist if there is the self.
Yes, sir.
And that life has an extraordinary sense of otherness, a sense of non-being in the world though you live in the world.
Yes. And that life itself will repudiate wielding powers.
But you see, sir, the desire for power, political, religious, spiritual, occult, is so strong. A man who has money, the power of money is so strong.
One sees it in the eye, in the voice, in the step.
That's just it.
Yes, sir. So to be nothing.
So you see, the saints try to lead a religious life without understanding the self, and therefore substitute the self by a symbol, by the cross, by the move. You follow? The symbol becomes extraordinarily important.
Yes, and they kill for it. In other words, the symbol becomes the self.
That's why the self-knowing is much more important than acquiring some kind of power.
Sir, if we may, this brings us to another question, which is related to what you've been saying. You've told us that the religious life is a life with the understanding and the ending of the self. You've told us that it isn't magic powers, however noble they appear to be. In the religious life, one finds the word meditation quite often used. And this word meditation is as popular today as this concern with the occult. You use the word meditation also, sir. Would you mind telling us how the meditation which you mean is part of the religious life which you speak of?
So meditation is generally understood as practicing some system.
It's rampant, yes. People sit this way, they sit that way.
There are
20
dozens
years
and
later.
dozens and dozens of groups and schools of meditation,
Yes.
with their systems, with their gurus, with their bosses, with their concentrated camps and all the rest of it.
Yes. Concentrated camps.
Concentrated
Concentration camps.
Yeah. You see, religion and meditation or contemplation have always gone together. You find this in India tremendously.
Nearly all the people who call themselves religious are going to tell you, we agree with you entirely. Meditation to us is a technique, and they use this awful word, a technique to end the self. And this technique might be repeating some formula or some other
Mantras.
goodness knows.
Yes. You see how very absurd that is, because the technique, the practice of technique is the furthering of the self, that's all. Is the strengthening of the self.
The one that is practicing the technique is the one that is supposed to disappear.
Yes. It's so obviously...
The robber becomes a policeman pretending to catch robbers.
So let us see
Would
now.
you speak of meditation and the religious life, please, sir?
What place has meditation in religious life? What is meditation? That's really important. We said what is religious life.
Surely when we've said what is religious life, meditation cannot be different from that.
That just
because if there is meditation and then the religious life, there is this awful breach between the two.
We've more or less analyzed what is...
In fact, there can be no difference between life and the religious life. It isn't that one has life on Saturday and the religious life on
Of course,
Sunday.
I mean, that's...
Life, religion, and meditation, and love and beauty must be the same thing.
Of course. So, sir, we analyzed more or less, looked into the question of religious life. Now, what is meditation?
It must be the living of the religious life.
What is meditation, really? Is it different from the life of selflessness?
If it's different from that life, then it is selfish.
Yes.
Therefore it is not meditation.
So it's not. Is it a way of overcoming or abandoning or going beyond the self?
If it is
Go
a
slow.
way, if it is a
I'm
way,
asking, sir.
time is involved,
So we say, as time and
effort,
effort is involved, that's
and
not a
will,
religious life.
which come from the self.
Therefore, it is still part of the self. The pursuit in meditation to control thought is still part of the self. Right? Because
Yes.
the controller is the self.
Yes.
Wishing
Effort is
to...
involved.
That's right. Meditation, in the sense of achieving enlightenment or realizing some experience, transcendental or other
Or
experiences,
insight.
is still the observer in operation,
The self.
the self. So, meditation is not control, meditation is not a practice, meditation is not an effort to achieve a glorious experience or to remain in a particular state of consciousness,
Projected from memory,
and all the rest of it.
pursued through effort.
So we say all that is not meditation. As you can see why it is not logical, it's sane, it's balanced,
Yes.
and that's not meditation.
Yes. Cannot be.
Oh, obviously, it is not.
Opinion is not involved at all.
It's not. But a man sees the truth that as long as the self is, the religious life is not. Then how is he to dissolve this self?
It's the only question, sir.
That's the only question. Is he dissolved? Is the self to be dissolved through effort? We say no.
Because the self makes effort.
Yeah. So, is the dissolution of the self through meditation? Obviously is not. Because in meditation, when there is an observer who is wishing to dissolve the self,
Who is meditating.
he is the self.
Yes.
Either call him super self or whatever it is, he's still the self. Self can divide itself into myriad parts.
And self is thinking.
Saying I am the higher self or I am that.
It's fancy.
It is still the self. So how is a mind which really wishes, let me put it in quote, to lead a life without the self, How is that to come by?
How is the self ended?
A different kind of meditation is necessary. Not the meditations which we have talked about. That must be completely set aside. A different kind of meditation. What is that? One wants to lead a religious life. One sees the truth that there is no religious life as long as the self is. And one sees all the tricks the self plays.
Yes.
One is aware of all the things that self creates in order to achieve a selfless life, which is still part of the self.
Yes.
Now, how does one come to this perception? Seeing the powers, Siddhis, are not a religious life. Seeing the caught in dogmas, beliefs, rituals is not a religious life. Seeing that any form of Siddhi, power, position, prestige, healing is not a religious life.
Seeing that all these tricks are not meditation, although they call it meditation.
What is that thing that sees?
You said, how is one to come to this perception
No.
that the religious life...
So look, one sees religious life is not the ritual life,
Yes.
the dogmatic life, the life of
Yes, orthodoxy or
all
effort.
that effort. What is the mind that says this is not it?
This is clear understanding.
Be careful. What do you mean by that word? What is that state of mind that says, I see that is false. I see that is illusion. I see this is worthless. I see the religion is none of these things. What is
Several
it?
things are involved.
Yeah, that's just it.
First of all, it's impersonal.
No,
It's not personal.
don't yet translate it too quickly. Wait, sir. Don't be so. What is it? What is this thing that says this is not? When you say this is not, in that there is great joy. When you say, when the mind sees that siddhi, power, ritual is not, it is saying from a state of joy.
And freedom.
A state of joy. And therefore freedom comes with joy. Now how does this happen? To say, well,
Are you saying how does this right perception come about?
how does this joy which perceives the truth,
Or are the two together?
let's
Is
say,
it the joy that perceives or the perception that is joyful? It's
so
the same
don't
thing.
don't divide it. We're examining. It is out of this perception that says, perception says this is not. And that perception is entrenched or is with joy. There is no battle, there is no conflict, there is no saying, oh, how am I to get rid
It's
of this?
harmonious and free and easy.
So, what is that perception? How does it come? How does it come, listen to this, sir, to a person who has devoted his life, his energies, studied immensely, sacrificed everything, wife, family, position, and caught in some stupid little ritual, stupid little self-contained meditation, practicing some silly system.
Yes, some
All systems are silly, but I mean,
yes.
now, there he is. He wants to lead a really religious life and get caught in it.
Yes.
To such a man, if you say, look, this is not it, to him this is a tremendous blow.
Impertinence, yes.
He says, he can't understand it.
Of course.
So you begin to see,
He might kill you.
of course he might kill me, he might burn me as they wanted. I know.
Yes.
I never told you about that. Doesn't matter. What was I going to say? Yes, I've got it. Just a minute. So perception of the truth that all these are false can only come when the mind is really not attached to anything. Not attached to any experience it has gained, to any knowledge, to any prejudice, to any formula, not attached. That's the first requirement of perception. Which doesn't mean it must be detached. Detachment comes only when you are attached. Then you practice detachment.
Which again is attachment. Yes.
So
Depends
why,
also how the word is used. And
yeah. So
with
why
that
is
meaning.
the mind attached to any of them? Or to a house, to a belief, whatever it is. Why is the mind attached? Because any attachment denies freedom. And it's only in freedom you can see. Right?
yes,
So, why is the mind attached?
the mind is attachment.
No, go into it a little more. Why am I attached to a formula? Why are certain human beings entrenched in the myth of Jesus or Krishna or you follow?
Many things. are
Why?
involved.
Attached, not to what they're attached to.
Yes, many things are involved.
What are they?
It's like an onion. Each skin is the
No,
onion.
I'm not
and
sure.
yet-
I'm not sure.
Well, there's fear. There's habit.
Wait, sir. The root of
There's
fear,
anxiety.
the root of fear, the root of anxiety, the root of insecurity, the root of
There's greed.
all that.
There's aggression.
It all
It's all the same thing.
same, but it all springs from a certain root,
A center
from a center, from a sense.
of self.
Don't use those words because we'll. Now, what is that? Why is there this this attachment? If we could find that, then these things will drop off naturally. I don't have to struggle not to be a Catholic or you follow. It's finished.
Are you asking what is the essential root of attachment?
Because I see where there is attachment, there is no freedom. And therefore there is no joy. It is only when freedom and joy function are together there is real perception.
So we have, in a sense, a vicious circle. Freedom and joy saw the folly of attachment. But there is no freedom and joy because there is attachment.
Now why am I attached? What is the root of this thing that makes me attached to things, to people, to ideas, to, you follow? My guru, I mean, you follow? However absurd, however childish, however their gods and their saviors are, it's too childish.
Yes.
Why are they attached? They know intellectually it is stupid, and yet they are attached.
Yes, they didn't attach sometimes in order to not be attached.
So, why is the mind attached? Is it that the mind feels that it must be occupied?
That's not all of it.
I'm just beginning to examine. Of course, not all of it. Because without occupation, mind feels égaré, lost,
Yes. Rather
empty.
in a panic, yes.
So it says, I must be occupied.
It fidgets.
Is it because basically, deeply, there is the fear of not being, which is the fear of deep loneliness, emptiness, sense of lost. In a sea, unless there is rudder, one feels lost.
Yes.
So, the occupation, sense of deep loneliness, deep uncertainty, deep insecurity. All these force me to get attached, force the mind to get attached.
Yes.
Can the mind be free of this sense of despair and loneliness? And so we go back to that. So to fill that loneliness, I do all these things. And if I really face that loneliness, look at it, go into it, understand it,
Challenge
not try to
Challenge it.
challenge, look at it, then the mind goes beyond it. So, I am attached because of this. And without solving this, mere detachment has no value at all. Right?
One must get the root of it.
Root of it. So attachment destroys freedom. And where there is freedom, there is joy, and therefore it's that quality of mind that has this sense of joy and freedom that it perceives. So it perceives its own attachment, and therefore it is free of the attachment, without any analysis, without any conflict.
It understands.
Right, it's finished.
Yes.
So meditation then is none of these things, but understanding the ways and the means, the action of the self, which in its desire, in its pain, in its anxiety, in its guilt, in its sorrow says, I cannot find a way out, therefore I'll be attached. And the way out is not in the things you are attached to, but
in the ending of attachment.
in the ending and the understanding of attachment, because you have gone deeply into the cause of attachment, which can be perceived instantly, the cause, without analysis. So meditation has quite a different meaning. Because it means really freedom and joy to observe without any attachment, without any partial perception. This is mine and that's yours. This is the way I look, this is the way you look. There is no division. That's not that. Now let's try it.